A nossa próxima convidada é Mina Hadjian. A Mina fundou uma organização norueguesa que é responsável pelo programa de rádio RøverRadion e onde todas as semanas recebe convidados que são pessoas reclusas, sendo este o único programa desta natureza que está disponível fora das prisões norueguesas. A nossa equipa da RESHAPE tropeçou na Mina numa visita que fez a uma das prisões em Oslo, onde a Mina estava a gravar um programa e achámos o conceito extremamente interessante, porque, por um lado, é uma forma de nós conseguirmos sensibilizar a sociedade em geral e, por outro, permite também à população reclusa ter uma via de expressão e partilha com toda a sociedade. A Mina vai estar à conversa com o Simen Larsen, que também faz parte da equipa da RøverRadion, que está neste momento a estudar criminologia e que foi ainda o promotor de um grande acontecimento, a primeira Pride Parade na prisão. Para esta talk, nós vamos ter espaço para uma ou duas questões do nosso público no final e, por favor, utilizem o slide. Vocês têm no vosso booklet, na informação extra, têm um link. Podem usar o slide, colocar as vossas questões e nós, no final, vamos ter tempo para uma ou duas dessas questões. E, portanto, eu agora convido a Mina e o Simen para um programa da RøverRadion, diretamente do Prison Insights 2022.
Number one.
Sorry, number one. I should know this. I mean, been doing it for a living for 25 years or something. So, sorry about that. Thank you so much for having us. And now we're gonna show a short video of what we do in Norway. With a bit of sound.
Det får sin egen stemme og får lov til å snakke om hvordan det er å være i fengsel, og temaer som opptar dem enormt viktig for deres egen selvfølelse.
Jeg har funnet en mestringsfølelse som jeg aldri har funnet før, som jeg har lyst til å bygge videre på, takket være RøverRadion.
RøverRadion er et ytringsfrihetsprosjekt som går på å gi en stemme til en befolkningsgruppe som aldri har fått den stemmen før. Norge trenger RøverRadion. Norge trenger å vise at det er et demokrati i praksis, og ikke bare på papiret. It's a short little film about what we do in Norway. It's basically Norwegian prison radio that I started up 8 years ago in Halden prison. And the reason I did that is because I've worked for years as a radio host myself with morning shows and lunch shows and things like that. And I thought everything in the media was very polished and very proper. So when a former inmate called me and asked me to come and make radio in Halden prison, actually the most arrested man in Norway, I went in there and I thought, let's find out what's living in these people. And I love hearing people's stories. Sometimes I cry, sometimes I get pissed off, but it's like during a day I'll cry and be happy about 20 times. So it's giving, but it's also important, I think. So I started up in Oslo prison and in the women's prison in Oslo, maximum security, all the prisons that we are in. So we're in 6 prisons now and working on being in all prisons in Norway. So the criminal justice system has just ordered from us a 24-hour radio show, 7 days a week, in all the prisons. So I've got enough to do, that's for sure. But it's fantastic. Pardon?
If we get the funding.
If we get the, because that's it, we're a charity, if we get the funding. And what I also realized when I started working with these fantastic men in maximum security prison is that outside the prison walls, you just hear one side of the story. And it's like, monster, did this. And I meet them in prison, and it's not really like that. So I had to face a few of my own prejudices that I didn't even think I had. And meeting fantastic people every day is quite nice. I mean, it's a good work environment, even though it's in prison. And this guy I met about 6 years ago in Oslo prison. He was living there. And I was visiting with my keys, you know, Sarah. I had the power of the keys. I try and hide them. But tell me a little bit about how you ended up in Oslo prison, Simen.
Well, I come from a pretty middle-class background. Both my parents are academics. But like many people in prison, I started using too much drugs and alcohol at a pretty young age, about 13. I later got diagnosed with bipolar disorder. So, and I used drugs for years and years. And around 2012, a lot of things happened in my life. My father got sick and died, and I started not only doing drugs, but doing criminal activity. And I had 2 or 3 very active years. And I ended up in Oslo prison.
What was your criminal activity?
I sold drugs, I did burglaries, I stole thousands of bikes.
You still can't walk by an expensive bike without going, he doesn't have a proper lock on that bike.
It's the only thing I miss. It's the thing in the world that I'm the best in the world at doing it, and I just can't do it anymore.
But he's made some things for the RøverRadion when it comes to teaching people how to lock their bikes. And we also put a GPS on a bike and left it unlocked to see, and it got stolen in 2 seconds, you know. So you're helping the community.
Yeah.
So how was your mental state when you first came into Oslo prison, like right before I met you?
Well, prison is suppression. It breaks people down. And when you came to my cell, I had been in prison for about 6 months. I've been thinking all the time about going back out to my life, use my new contacts. But I just barely started thinking about maybe I should do something other with my life. And then you came. And Mina says she worked in radio for 25 years, but around 20 years ago, she was a real superstar. Everybody knew who she was. And when she came to my cell and were like, talk to me, I was like, why is this famous person in my cell? And we talked for about 5 or 10 minutes, and she said, you have something that the world needs to hear. And I was like, no, that's too scary. And back then we had about 1,500 listeners on
local radio station.
Yeah, local radio station. Now it's about 60,000-70,000 each week.
It's all in Norway, basically.
So I wouldn't have dared to do it then, but you forced me to to start in the radio, and I was broken down. I had no self-confidence.
Your back was like you're a tall guy. Like now I can see you're a tall guy, but in prison your shoulders were down, the confidence was down, and I just saw that beautiful spark you have, but you didn't really see it yourself.
No, I thought that I'll never amount to anything.
Now you're gonna make me cry again. Stop doing that. We cry a lot. Well, what happened, I remember, because usually I interview, like the prison will tell me we've got 10 candidates for you. So I interview each person, and what's important for me is to find their real personality, because sometimes you've got like a 2-meter tough guy with tattoos in his face, you know. And I'm like, hello, how are you? And they're like, oh, I'm fine. And I'm like, well, so what do you do? I'm a criminal. And I'm like, what the hell? No, you're not. You're criminal. And then I'm a criminal. I sped on the way here, you know. I mean, you're not what you did. A person is so much more, but society likes to think that, you know, they're over there, like Sarah was talking about. They're over there. They're not my problem. They're different. But of course they're not different. He could be me. I grew up with domestic violence, but I ended up working in prison instead of staying in prison. So at least I got to prison in some way. But with Simen, I don't know, there's something special about everybody, but you were so down. I thought, he just has to do this. It just had, and I went to your cell, and you started up. And tell me about the first day you showed up with lots of notes.
Yeah, I've been in the radio for like 3 or 4 times, and I hated it. I wanted to go back to myself all the time, and Mina and her colleague, they talked me into staying. And then I got some ideas for things to do on the radio, and I came with my little notebook, and I said, oh, is this any good? And you thought it was.
It was excellent. It wasn't good. It was excellent. You can tell them what it was. You changed
what?
The politician you had in the studio, and
yeah.
You told the prison what to do with certain things too.
Yeah, suddenly we had some power. I could get politicians to come into the prison. I got the prison warden to answer my questions, and I was pretty harsh.
Yeah, because it was that Honeygate.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
The prison made some honey, and we who made the honey didn't get to taste it. So I told him off for about 20 minutes.
Now everybody gets their honey.
Yeah.
So, luckily.
So yeah, I suddenly had some power, and I shouldn't cry because I'll lose my gangster image. Yeah. But you built me up from nothing. I started doing things that were. I felt that maybe I could do something more than just steal bikes. So yeah. You built me up from nothing, basically.
I got so much out of this relationship too. Like we're learning from each other. I learned a hell of a lot from this guy, and I learned something every day. Like if it weren't for him, I would probably sitting here shaking and throwing up, because that's what I usually do. But he, you know, dark studio radio, we like the whole darkness of it. But you got out 2016, and tell me what met you when you walked outside the wall.
Well, the problem is when you're released from prison, you don't start at 0. You start at minus a lot. You owe a lot of money. You don't have a place to live. You have nothing. And you have your criminal background. You have no or little self-confidence. And so it's scary getting out. And you need to start your life from a lot less than 0. So it was kind of hard to get released to.
But then you started working for us.
Yeah, I started working for RøverRadion in 2017. Hosting,
on the outside, he was working for us.
Hosting debates. First time it was about 30 viewers. In the audience. Next time it was around 80, then 150, and now all of you. So it built me. I continue to grow under your guidance.
Stop it. That just, yeah. But Simen has now worked for us for 5 years. Wow. He's worked for us for 5 years, and you've also studied during this time.
I work too much and study too little.
But you're supposed to be studying.
Yeah, I started a bachelor's degree in criminology, but it's going quite slowly.
Yeah, but he's doing his exams. As long as he's doing that, I'm happy. Yeah. So what does the future bring for you, Simen?
Well, I've worked on some projects for RøverRadion with in Norway you have the right to vote, so we try to educate the prisoners about their rights.
Yeah, because he takes topics and says, you know, why aren't they voting in prison? We're like, yeah, why aren't they voting in prison? They can vote. So he made a campaign out of it.
Yeah. Your vote should be cast regardless of your past.
And it was amazing. And then, you know, when you work in prison, things show up, and we could see that there was a lot of hate towards gay people in prison.
Yeah, when I got imprisoned the first time, I was like a drug-using Norwegian guy, and when in the prison, other criminals like me were like, "What, do you know a gay guy?" And I was like, the criminal drug-using community in Oslo is full of gays, so it's just not true. And I think it's a hyper-masculine environment, and everybody gets, like, the Polish people maybe have the worst attitudes towards gay people, and it just, everybody copies that attitude. And I think Norway is a very liberal country, but I think prison maybe is the worst place for gay people in Norway. So RøverRadion wanted to do something about that. So we started a project with trying to educate the prisoners for better what heter det? Holdninger. Attitudes towards gay people. So we had a project, and after some time we had a parade. We'll show you a video from now, if we can get it.
Well, before that, there was lectures and things, and everybody thought there would be raining stones in the prison. So, because this prison is maximum security with gang members and terrorists. So, yeah. Roll film.
Number 3.
Her i luftegården på Eidsberg fengsel så skal vi arrangere, eller vi skal ha, verdens første Pride-parade i et fengsel, i hvert fall av offisiell art. Og så skal vi ha et jævla kult band som skal spille inn i gymsalen, og grille og ha en Pride-fest.
Dere som står her i dag, med på noe historisk. Dette verdens første offisielle fengselspride.
Dette viktig for meg, både for holdningene som jeg har hørt folk har snakket om inne i fengselet, fordi jeg tror det uklokt at hvis man skal bli rehabilitert, at man går rundt ute i samfunnet og har sånne holdninger i seg selv, fordi det en gruppe som føler seg diskriminert på mange forskjellige grunnlag, og så ser man ikke bjelkene i sitt eget øye, og diskriminerer andre for ting altså for at de den de da. Og så sånn helt personlig så hadde jeg en kompis som tok livet av seg i fjor sommer, og det hadde ikke direkte sammenheng med det, men han satt jo i fengsel et halvt år før, og jeg helt sikker på at han fikk masse dritt slengt etter seg, bare fordi at han var den fine fyren som han var.
I dag det en fest. Det verdens første pride i et fengsel. Vi må vise at vi støtter de innsatte, vi må støtte RøverRadion, vi må støtte vår egen etat i at det skal være trygt å være homofil i fengslene. Og det ønsket vi å vise, og vi tar på oss de peneste klærne vi har og går i fronten av paraden for å støtte det der.
Would probably be the best day at work I'll have ever. And the two people carrying like the banner is one of the heads of the criminal justice system in Norway, and the other guy is imprisoned for many kilos of drugs. So it was a symbolic thing that was very nice.
And the kid in that prison, there are a lot of kids. I would say they're kids because they're 16, 17, 18. And they're in the editorial staff in that prison of RøverRadion. And I told them, you got to be the reporters in this pride parade. They're like, no. I will kill my brother if he tells me he's gay, and all this stupid stuff. They showed up. They were reporters. And I think they've changed some of their attitudes now. So that was nice. But thank you so much for listening to us. I think we've already gone over the time. 2 minutes. We have 2 minutes. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah. They do. Okay, so we have some questions from the audience, from you. Maybe I just sit here with you. So the first one, I think, is for you, Mina. What was the biggest challenge in creating the radio station, and what is it now?
The biggest challenge was maneuvering through a very tight system. And I was viewed upon as maybe a loose cannon on Norwegian radio that would just say whatever came to my mind. So I think that was the biggest hurdle, getting the prison system to trust me and to know that I will follow all your rules while you're watching, and just getting through, basically, talking to politicians, talking to people to get to that right person.
Second question, what would you say is the biggest takeaway for yourself from this project? And I think both of you can answer this one.
I think a lot of what Sarah was saying earlier, I mean, humility, compassion, and the absolute need to change the world, basically. What about you?
For me, it's very personal. It built me up from being just a shell of a man to feel that I contribute in society, and that and maybe we can all be hopeful that you can evolve. No crying.
Thank you for such an intimate sharing. So our third and last question is, have you had people that leave prison but stay in the radio community?
Yes, definitely. We have people that work with us because we don't only do prison radio, we also make podcasts. For example, about there was a triple murder at a farm, and we know all the people that were there, and the story that came out was so different. Like, these are monsters and this. So we made a proper podcast about the drug use, the upbringings, the abuse, the sexual abuse, everything. So we do a lot of that too, and then we use the people that used to work for us inside.
There are also a couple of guys who started in the radio with the technical part that now are employed in
studios,
like sound technicians. So
yeah, making commercials and music.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you so much, guys. I think you should be very, very proud of what you built in prison and outside of it, which is the most important part. And congratulations for your real journey, Simen. Very inspiring.
Very much.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.